Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me today. My name is Роман Бунин, and today I'm going to have a presentation on Dashbord Canvas. It's an agile framework, how to create and design dashboards. And we're going to go through its framework and see some business cases, and also we'll have a practical part on Tableau. I'm glad you all joined the meeting. So let's start. First of all, I'd like to introduce myself. And the first thing I'd like to put in, I really love data visualization. I'm really keen on it. And in order to show you that I really love it, I just want to show you visualization. It's a visualization of time me spending on data visualization. That's this time tracking on my time spent in Tableau for the couple of past years. And as you can see, I've been creating dashboards quite a lot of times for this time. So each dot is a day. The size of the dot represents the amount of time I spent in Tableau, and the color is just represents, was it more than half of the working day or it wasn't. I just wanted to show that I really love data visualization, and I'm doing quite a lot with it. For the last 4 or 5 years, I've been working with Tableau. I hold PhD in engineering, and I used data visualization in my thesis, and I really fell in love with data visualization at that time. And nowadays, I'm a head of data visualization team for Yandex Taxi. Yandex Taxi is a joint venture between Uber and Yandex, and it's a ride-handling company. We provide taxi services in quite an amount of countries, mostly our core business in Russia, but also we have about 16 countries all the world. It's Europe and Middle East, also some emerging markets. And I provide internal consultancy on data visualization and Tableau in our company. My goal is to create style guides, to create best practices, and so on. So my team in charge of that. Also, I host a blog on data visualization. I don't know about it for 6 years already. Unfortunately, it's in Russian, so I don't know if you find it quite helpful for you, but I really like to get in touch with you, and if you have any questions, or if you just like to discuss some BI or data visualization stuff, I'm ready and will be glad to do so. So you have LinkedIn, and you'll have this board, the link to this board, and you will be able to browse all the links if you want to do so. So let's move on. Let's move to today's agenda. And today's agenda, as I said, is mainly about Dashbord Canvas. And I'd like to introduce you to that framework. I'll show you how to apply this framework to I'll show you how to apply this framework to a dashboard, to a sales dashboard, and we will go through the case, and I'll show you how this framework helps to design dashboards. After that, it's going to be quite a part and practical part. We are going to open Tableau and show you some life hacks and tips and tricks how to create a good layout in Tableau. Also, we'll have a Q&A session. If you have anyone, I'll be glad to answer that. But also today we are going to use a live polling system, and you can go through the link you see on the screen, or you can go through the link you see in the description to the video. Or if you'd like, you can use QR code to get it on mobile phone. Any way you want. So let's try to go to this system and to get to know each other. The first question is going to be just to warm up, to test the system. And as there is a delay between the video and me, so I'm going to wait a bit for all participants to take their responses. And the first question, I just want to know, do you design, create dashboards, and how often do you so? And just understand if it's working or no. It seems to be working, but nevertheless, let's wait a bit for all the answers. I hope that my English is not so terrible, but I apologize ahead that sometimes I struggle with it and sometimes I can't stack and can't pause or something like that. But I hope it's not going to be a problem for you guys. So the answers are coming, and they seems to be quite interesting. And majority of our audience now are creating the dashboards either every day or once a month. And I think that this meeting is going to be helpful for them very much. Okay. I believe that the system is working and everybody who wanted to answer the questions has answered them. So I'll move to the next question, just because it was a question about to test our system. And now we're going to pass to a real question, and I'll discuss also some stuff on it. So in this question, please just pick up to 3 the most hard steps in dashboard creation you think, and you have obstacles with, and you face during the dashboard creation process. So I'm going to tell my view on it. I think that dashboards are really complex products, complex IT products, and sometimes people don't, they underestimate the complexity of these products. I think that dashboards requires a lot of skills. If you are a BI developer or database engineer, you should know, you should know database administration, you should know BI tool, you should know graphical design in order your dashboard looks good. You should be aware of user experience design in order your dashboard be convenient and useful. You should be also quite strong in business and analytics, also statistics and so on. So that's a lot of skills. And the problem that these skills are mostly from different parts, from different spheres. It requires as well as engineering skills, as well as design skills, and sometimes even project management and product management skills. And I think that it's really complex products, and that's why we need some assistance when we're creating them. Okay. And as we can see on the results of the voting, that it's distributed mostly evenly. So, but nevertheless, the most complex parts are technical obstacles and preparing cleaning data. So it's more about technical part of it. Also, we have some problems on layout design, choosing graphs, and so on. Interesting. Okay, so as you can see, it's quite obvious that the most complex parts are technical, for sure, but also we have some parts that also quite difficult is to how to understand your customer needs, and also on design, choosing graphs and layout design. And I would say the distribution is mostly evenly. So it's not something that's, it's not 80% on preparing cleaning data and so on. And as I said, as the distribution is quite evenly and as the dashboard design requires a lot of skills, I think that we shall apply structured approach to it, just because we need it in order to not to forget to go through the all steps and to get the result we want. So I believe that as we saw, the distribution of assets is quite even. And I think that we need an algorithm, a framework, in order to deal with dashboard design. I believe that it really helps. First of all, don't to forget to do right things. Just because everybody knows that you should. Don't forget about user experience design. Don't forget about graphical design. Don't forget to ask that and that. But in real life, mostly we sometimes too self-confident and just using our past experience, just creating dashboards, not and forget to do some quite important stuff. So I think that if you apply some framework to your dashboard design, you will just not to forget to do something. You know, in my opinion, it's somehow similar to morning exercising. Everybody knows that if you do morning exercising every day, you're going to be healthy, but it's really hard to do so. The same stuff with dashboards. If everybody knows that you should apply user experience design, graphical design, all that stuff, but it's really easy to forget to do so, and it's easy not to do, to forget to do so. So I think the first idea that structured approach is useful to forget to do right things. The second thing, I think that it helps to be on the same page with the customer. As far as I can see, it's not the most common problem from our pooling, but nevertheless, it's also a problem. And if you have a structured approach, you just can show it to your customer and to discuss it with him in a framework. And I believe it helps to understand your customer and to be sure that they're on the same page. Also, I think that structured approach and frameworks help to make your decision on design. And by design, I mean it's not only a graphical representation, but also the layout of your dashboard and also some user experience related stuff. And I think if you apply some structured approach through all of your company, you will be able to have the same docs and same approach across all the teams, and it's going to be very fruitful in terms of knowledge sharing and in terms of that everybody understands and doing the same things the same way. And in my company, it was really a point because we have quite an amount of analysts who create dashboard. For sure, we are relatively to Amazon. We are quite a small company. It's about 2,000 people. But we have about 130 analysts who create dashboards on a daily basis. And we needed a structured and common approach to do our dashboards. That's why I decided to create this Dashbord Canvas, this framework. So I'm wondering, do you apply any structured approach in your work? And the next question, our pooling is going to be, do you apply any structured and documented approach to design dashboards? It's reduced here. So there are three questions, three answers. And yes, if you apply them, just click yes, we have applied. I don't know, you have some documents, you have some wiki page on dashboard creation. The second answer is no, you just do it. You just create dashboards with your gut feeling, with your experience. Or, for example, if you just use your common sense and some steps from experience, also please click it. The last one. I'll be honest, due to the delay, it's a bit uncomfortable for me to follow the answers, but I hope it's not a tragedy for you. So let's wait a bit of seconds for getting all the votes. I believe we're about 50 votes. going ahead, I would say that also in the market, there are a couple of frameworks also, how to create dashboards. So there are books on how to do so. And I decided to do my own just because I think that this one is quite visual and it's quite simple. I didn't want to overcomplicate it. And I think this approach that I'll show you is really good for teamwork, for agile teams. And if you apply any agile frameworks in your company, for sure it's going to be useful for you. Okay, I believe we have almost finished our voting. And as far as you can see, the least common approach is to use the structured algorithm, and the most of you are just using your common sense and steps from experience. And it's okay. Today I'm not going to, to tell you some wonderful information and to provide you with a magic wand or some magic pill. And we will just apply common sense, but we will just structure it. We will structure it, place it in a right order, and I believe that this order, putting these steps and writing them down, really helps to get the result. So let's move to the presentation. Let's look at the Dashbord Canvas itself. It's look like that. I was inspired with Business Model Canvas. I don't know if you're familiar with this framework. This framework is about creating new businesses and new ideas. It's quite common in a lean and agile environment. And I decided to apply same concept to dashboard creation. So this canvas has 9 parts. And it structures something familiar to the business model canvas. So it consists of the team, the goal understanding, our main purpose, the users who's going to use it, the context of use, questions and decisions. It's also about data. It's also about visuals, what visuals we're going to use. And it's about layout design and testing and supporting our result. So the approach is quite forward. You're just taking this canvas and you just filling in all the questions that are placed here. And to be honest, I think that it's really simple stuff to do. But during this process, you'll be able to find the new things and new ideas how to make your dashboard excellent. By the way, I'd like to explain why it is located so. It's not in some order, not a quite straightforward order, but in some quite unusual order. It is mimic somehow the business model canvas, and it's about that all technical stuff, all data, and the stuff that are related to our engineering team is on the left. And the stuff that is related to our end users and internal customers are on the right. And they are connected with common understanding, common purpose. So the engineering team is providing the goal and it creates value to the customers. But I'd like to say that it's not the, if you are going to do it just in a quite forward manner and just using, I don't know, Google Doc or any document you want and just to place 9 steps, it's going to work as well. I personally prefer such composition just because I think it's clearer, it's on the one screen. But if you'd like to use it just in a step-by-step manner, it's also okay. It's also going to work. It's not a magic about this canvas. It's a magic about applying all of these steps to your dashboards. So now we are going to fill the dashboard on the real case. I'm going to tell you a case how I created a dashboard for a sales department. I'll show you the result, the final result. So we have such a dashboard. It's a dashboard for sales department of a small company. And we are going to, I'm going to tell you the story how I filled in each step of the Dashbord Canvas and how it helped me to make such design and how it influenced my design decisions during the dashboard creation process. So, first of all, a little bit of context. It's a small company. They provide IT and engineering consultancy. They create websites and something like that. So it's not a big company. It's a IT company who provides such services, and they have a sales department, and they needed a dashboard on sales, just because we wanted to track their performance and to understand how do they doing and are they going to reach the plan. So that's a brief description of it. First of all, I needed to discuss and to decide who is going to be on the team. And I filled out the team and discussed it with internal customer. So internal customer was John Smith, and he was the head of sales. And during discussions with them, we decided who is going to be responsible for what. And during this discussion, we found out that John expected me to be an ETL and data engineer as well. But I said that I don't have such skills. And I need also help from Mike in order to help me to get the data and to clean the data. And also we placed down the roles, who is going to be responsible for what, not only the names of the team, but also the roles, just because in a dashboard creation, there are a lot of roles, quite an amount of them, and it's really crucial to place them for each person. For me, to be honest, it seems to be a bit obvious who's going to do what. But for example, in this particular case, the customer was expecting from me to create, to clean and to get the data. And during the process of filling this team part, we found out that we need another member on our team. So it was quite helpful for us to understand that we need such person. When it was done, we discussed the goal of the dashboard, and I filled in the goal understanding. So the goal understanding is the part that related just to main purpose of this dashboard. And the main idea of this step is to get the same understanding and the same vision on the goal and the final result. I personally believe that a lot of dashboards are ruined on the step, not when they are created or implemented, just in the very beginning. Then the people don't understand what goal do they want to achieve with this dashboard and how it influences. They just developers just don't get the right needs that customer wants to achieve. So the point is that this description should be quite coherent. It should be long. It should be quite small, but it should describe the general situation, the business process that are under the goal, and what KPIs or metrics are tracked during the process. So, for example, in our case, it was we just placed down that the company provides service in 6 areas. So they have some different products. The main clients are B2B clients, and the sales process consists of 6 steps. There are 4 sales managers and the head of sales who are going to use this dashboard, and the goals of the dashboard are the following. The first one is to have a helicopter view on sales. The second one is to understand how managers work and to compare them. And the third one is understand client profile. And the fourth one is to find out the way to achieve the plan. It should be implemented and done until to March 2020, then CRM system is launched. So The point is that everybody knows on the team was familiar with these processes. But anyway, during this discussion, when I placed it down and wrote it down, we found out that the CRM system wasn't in place still when we were creating this dashboard. So it influenced the way we designed and developed dashboards. We didn't have final data, and we just mock-upped it, and we used some Excel files to do so, and so on. But we also decided to place some time for testing, just because we knew that there's going to be replacement on the data. So, as I said, the point and the main idea of this part is to get the same understanding with your customer of the final goal. And this final goal is going to influence your decision in terms of data and in terms of what parts of you are going to have. Just because reading this goal understanding, I understand that it's going to be some mix of operational dashboard and analysis dashboard, and it's going to be provided a helicopter view as well as some in-depth information. So when we fill this out, we are going to the third block, and it's about users. There were two main users for this dashboard. That was a head of sales. It was a head of sales department, first of all, and there were sales managers. The crucial thing for me here was to find out that the head of sales department should understand the general situation and should understand how managers work. So the main area for him was about helicopter view, but also if he needed to provide in-depth analysis of managers, he wanted to do so. So he should be able to do so. Also, they were sales managers, and they were few of them, only 4 people. And the main goal for them was to understand how can they achieve their plans, and to find out how it's going also. How it influenced my design decisions. First of all, I'd like to say that there are few users of these dashboards, only 5 to 4 people. And it means that I wasn't afraid to create a really complex dashboard. As you can see, this dashboard, I would not name it quite readable and easy to understand from the glance. It's quite complex one. But as I said, it's going to be a few users who are going to use it, and they are professional in their field. It's not a general dashboard for general audience. It's a quite in-depth dashboard about sales. And that's why I wasn't afraid to do quite in-depth analytical and quite complex dashboards. So depends on this part, you are going to decide, is it going to be a small dashboard? Is it going to be a really general dashboard? And for sure, you shall consider all of the goals of different people, of different users. And I think then you are filling this in, you understand who is going to use it for what, and also you will understand the level of complexity of the dashboard during this process. So the next step for me was to find out what was the context of use for the dashboard. And we found out that dashboard is used on a daily basis during the stand-ups and everyday meetings. And also head of sales need a rare occasional access to the dashboard on a cell phone in order to provide ad hoc information to CEO. So there are 2 main contexts: everyday use on a desktop and occasional use on a cell phone. And I understood that I shall provide some trade-off between creating a standalone mobile version or just using only desktop version. And it influenced the dashboard the way it was designed with mobile first use in layout, but there were no special version or mobile version for it. So if you you can mention and you can see that the main KPI part of this dashboard is structured the way it really fits the mobile device. So when a person opens the dashboard, the desktop version of this dashboard on a mobile device, it's going to look something like that. He or she will just see this block, only this one. And in some way, it's mobile friendly dashboard just because we have a main KPIs allocated the way it's convenient to use it on mobile device. So I think it was quite clever decision just because we did not waste time on creating a standalone mobile version, but nevertheless we meet the needs to really occasionally get this information on mobile device and to understand what's going on with the sales department. So then we understood the context of use. We moved to the next part of the Dashbord Canvas, and I believe that is crucial part of the Dashbord Canvas. At this step, we try to understand what questions are asked with users when they're using the dashboard. So it's just quite in-depth and quite particular questions that should be answered with the dashboard. For example, what is the dynamics and the number of deals? What channels and products works better, and so on. So we shall ask our internal customers what questions do they answer for, and we shall write down all of them. The more of them we are writing down, the easier for us is going to create the dashboard. I can emphasize it more how important this part. I think if you can collect all these questions, then it means you have designed the dashboard itself. Just because if you have collected these answers, you can convert them into visuals. That's why this part is very important, and sometimes it's quite tricky one. Sometimes business people don't really know these questions, and you should ask them a lot about it. You should find and help them to find these questions. My favorite one is we'd like to see dynamics. And you're asking, what kind of dynamics? Just dynamics. No, what kind of dynamics? Do you track, I don't know, year-over-year growth? Do you track week-over-week growth? And what scale, on daily scale, yearly scale, quarterly, and so on? And the answer usually is like, oh, okay, yeah, we are tracking it on weekly basis, and we are tracking year-over-year growth. So that's the question I can answer with the data. But if they're talking just like, oh, dynamics, oh, the share with, and so on, it's not an actionable question. So try to find out actionable questions that is going to be useful for you in order to create the dashboard. So we have wrote down all the questions from the sales department. And in order to get all of this information, we just use an interview. So there is no magic wand how to get this information. You just need to sit down with your internal customers and just to make an interview and to speak to them. Let's find out, do you use formal interview nowadays? Do you conduct them? Do you have a questionnaire? Just because I think it's also quite an important part of the dashboard creation. and let's vote for the using of the questionnaires in formal interview. While you're voting, I'll show the questions I'm using during the interview process. So they are 11 questions, and they are mostly all the questions that were placed in the Dashbord Canvas. I believe that a good interview shouldn't be longer than 60 minutes. The ideal timing is, I don't know, 45 to 50 minutes. And it shouldn't be, I don't know, like an interview or in police or something like that. It should be quite easy going. And I think that the interview really helps your customers to understand their needs. Just because when we are working in the same place, sometimes it seems to be uncomfortable, or I don't know, strange to conduct quite formal interview with each other. So it's just like a meeting, what do you want and so on. But I believe that if you place all these questions in quite formal way, the people who are going to answer them, they structure their thoughts and they can answer them easily, and they will provide you with more fruitful information. So here is my set of questions. It will be available after the meeting, and if you'd like, you can use them. I've designed them, I don't know, about a year ago. In these particular questions, and I think that these questions are quite useful, and you can just use them as a questionnaire and to get a good result. So, and I just like to say that there are a lot of techniques how to provide interview, but the main idea that don't be too self-confident, try to be easygoing with the persons and write down what they answers. And also, I'd like to emphasize that my personal beloved question is the last one, and always ask how people. Don't you forget about to ask them anything. So I believe that if you finish the interview with these questions, sometimes you'll get some quite interesting and unusual and unexpected information. So let's find out what the results of the questions at polling. Okay, yes, a lot of you provide this interview, and it's cool. It's really nice. But as I said, I suggest you to try to provide quite also try to provide a formal one with questionnaire, and to use structured approach to do so. So let's move on. As I said, we provide this interview and we filled out 5 of the 9 steps, and the next steps related to data. As we know all the questions we should answer, we can understand what data we need in order to answer them. And this step is quite obvious, I believe, also for engineering team and so on. The idea of it is just to write down all the data sources, all the tables you're going to use in order to create the dashboard. It could be some wiki page, it could be some docs and so on the tables, a list of fields in the table and type of fields and so on. For example, during this project, during this step, we found out that plants are stored in different system. It's not just in Excel, and it has different granularity from the data, and we found out that we're going to use blending in Tableau in order to deal with the dashboard. So I believe it's quite straightforward part, but I'd like to mention that you should not to forget to include the data you don't have. Just because sometimes BI developers are going through from the data to the answers. So, for example, they have some table, they have some, I don't know, rows on transactions, so on, and we have some columns, and we can answer such question with this data. But then you're going vice versa, when you firstly understand what questions do you want to answer, then you can not create, but you can find out the way, find out the data you don't have, and try to find it out, to clean it, and to get the results. So the idea is try to think not from data to questions, but from questions to data, and try to find out the data you need to answer. So having our data and having our questions, we can decide what visuals we are going to use in our dashboard. And for example, in this particular dashboard, we understood that all of these questions could be divided into 5 main parts. So it's about main KPIs, it's about sales managers, it's about channels, it's about how do we reach the plan, and detailed table by deals. So all of these questions were divided into 5 groups. And for each questions, we created some visual, some chart or some graph. The point is that having all of these questions, you almost designed your dashboard, just because usually for each particular question, there are some suitable visuals. I believe you are familiar with an amount of chart choosers and something like that, some guidance how to decide on a chart type and so on. And for example, I like this one from Tableau. No, it's not from. It's from Andy Kribble. As far as I believe, it's placed on Tableau public, and I like this chart chooser just because it's divided by the purpose. And if you have a question, you can answer this question with some type of visualization. For example, if the question would sounds like we need the dynamics year over year, you can understand that this about change over time. So you can just click the change over time tab and look in what kind of type of charts are you suitable for this particular task. So I think that it's quite a common sense, but also, as I said, you can use some chart choosers, but mostly I believe it's common sense. And usually if you created, I don't know, a couple of dashboards, usually you have this understanding what charts works better for the good result. So I'd like to move to the next questions. It's going to be some kind of a quiz for you guys, and we will find out, do you have this general understanding. I'm going to switch back and forward just because of the delay, but let's try to do so. I hope it's going to work. So I just to show you that I believe that all of you have already have this understanding what charts work best for the each particular question, type of question. And the first one is going to be how do you think what works best for the helicopter view task. So it's the task when we want to understand what's the general situation in our department and understand what is the current situation. You know, it's like your speedometer in your car. You just want to understand what the speed of the car you are using now. So now I'm going to get back to presentation for a while, and we will change the questions just a bit. So as I said, for each particular question, you can get some visuals you want to use. And for example, in this particular case, for helicopter view, we decided to use KPIs plus sparklines. For dynamics and the number of deals, we just use bar chart time series. For example, in this case, we used bar charts instead of line charts because these bars was also divided by step of the deal. So each bar was divided by different steps, and that's why it was more convenient to see it's in the bar chart. And so on, so on, so on. For each question was decided on each type of visuals. So let's get back for the pool, and I'm going to change it. Okay, as I expected, helicopter view, the most common and I believe the most right answer is the KPIs and sparklines. You just need to see some big figure to understand what is the current situation, and you need to see, I don't know, maybe some dynamics, not a precise one, but to understand it's going upward, downward, and so on. So sparklines works the best for this task. So I'm going to move to the next questions. I pardon if someone could not answer and this one. So let's move to the next one. Also, the same type of questions, but we're going to use the same answers, but then now kind of task. So, for example, if you have a task to find out top 10 cities on sales and so on and so on. So how do you think that what visualization would work best if you'd like to find top something of something? So now I'm going to get back to the visuals, and I'm going to discuss you quite one particular visual. I'm going to discuss you the unusual visual, just because as I think that almost all business tasks and questions are answered with 5 types of charts. It's a bar chart, line chart, scatter plot, table, and sparklines and KPIs, I believe. So, but sometimes you need not a usual one. You need some twist on a usual visual just because it works better than a usual one. For example, in this particular case, we had such question like which deals have stuck in the process of selling. For example, if you have a deal and it was passing through the process and it delayed somehow. For example, I don't know, we need to provide presentation, but it wasn't provided in time and so on. So the idea that each manager has different steps of the deal, and each step has an average time of passing through. So here we have each tick is an average time for each step. And the idea that we should highlight somehow deals that were delayed on each step. So in order to do so, I placed each deal as a dot on this graph. And the size of the dot represents the deal amount, what amount of money is related to this deal. The point is that the bigger the dot, then we should pay attention to it more. Also, I color-coded it with the difference between the average time and the actual time of the deal. So as you can see, if it's on the right part of it, it's also becomes reddish. The point is that it's quite unusual visual but at a glance, you can see that there are deals that are delayed, and that some deals are really big one, and you shall provide some attention to them. You shall go to these managers to ask them what's going on and so on. So I believe that this visualization is quite an unusual one, but it's quite readable, it's easy to read, and it really highlights the idea of tracking some outliers on average time to close. So my point is that sometimes you can create unusual visualization, but you should be sure that it works better than a usual one. So yes, as I said, a table also is a good answer for this question, and the bar charts also. I believe the combination of table and bar charts somehow gives the perfect answer. I believe I'm going to pass these questions because due to the delay, it's a bit drudgery, and we shall move forward. But I'll show you the questions that I was going to ask you. So, what is the best ways to show dynamics? I'm sure that the leading answer here would be line chart and time series. It's obvious, I believe. Also, we have questions like how to compare many metrics by some dimension or several dimensions. And I believe that for this particular task, tables works the best way, and so on. I think that would be the same answers from you guys. And what is the best for the relation between two metrics? For sure, it would be, I believe, scatter plot, just because it could correlation. You have a correlation on a scatter plot and so on. So sorry that I have passed them, and I believe it's a bit messy now on your side due to the delay, but let's move on and finish the presentation on the theory part. So my idea for, if you know the questions, you quite easily can get the visual. Then you at the end of the 7 steps, you have a list of visuals. You can just place them, and you can place them on the blocks. And now we move on to mockups and layout design. And as I said, it's really quite easy to combine them if you have a list of these visuals answering each question. You just taking them and placing them one to each other. And as I said, as you grouped your questions into some blocks, you can just use some blocks on mockup as well. I believe that mockups are quite good in dashboard design, and you should not create working prototype. I don't know, using some special software, using, I don't know, Photoshop, Figma or something like that. I believe that just hand drawing mockups works really well. I'll show you some examples of different mockups I created just in order for you to get feeling of that. I think that such hand drawing mockups are quite good, and they works well for their purpose. The purpose of these mockups are to get the same understanding and to get that your internal customers are agreed with the general concept. You're just showing, you are creating a meeting with your internal customer, just showing him this mockup, and you describing what is going to be on this mockup and what is all about, what filters do you have, and so on. So, but I mean, even this quite ugly mockup worked well with the customer when we were discussing with him the result. So my idea, don't spend and waste your time on beautiful mockups. Just use hand drawing one and just make a live discussion with your internal customers on it. And it's going to work okay for you. So then you have your mockup, you can create your dashboard. And I believe it's, on the one hand, it's quite complex and hard part of implementation. You shall use your BI system you're using. You should be proficient in table calculation, level of detail calculation, database administration, and so on, so on, so on. But on the other hand, I really believe if you have all these steps done, you're just going to implement it. You are just using the tool in order to create this stuff. For sure, it's not going to work just straightforward, just creating and giving the final result to your customers. For sure, you're going to have some feedback, you're going to revisit something, and so on. But in my practice, the projects that were using this Dashbord Canvas worked smoothly than other ones that were not using this. So, and my point that after you have implemented it, you should test it and you should provide some support to it. And it's a good idea to create some surveys, some hands-on training, some tracking the usage of your dashboard. For example, in my company, we have quite an amount of internal technical dashboards on how the dashboards are used with our users. And we track them, we track it on a daily and the weekly basis, and we try to manage our dashboard as a products and to find out weekly average audience, daily average audience, the retention to this dashboard, and so on. And I believe it's quite fruitful and give us a lot of information, what should we create and what we shouldn't create. So the idea of it that at this step, just decide with the team what kind of tracking you're going to use. And I believe that quick surveys and polls are working best for this part. And you just can use them in order to do so. For example, in our company, we are using just live polling in the chats. And just we have internal chats, we have some questions, and people answer them, and we understand was it working bad or good, and so on, something like that. Also, I'll just place here a checklist on our production launch. So when we launch, when we launch our dashboard in the production environment, we just go through all the points and just mark them as they done. So it's a good idea to have also your own such checklist, and if you'd like, you can get this one that we are using. I believe they quite obvious steps. I'll pass them. So, for example, in this particular project on sales dashboard, this testing part had done this part. It was quite fruitful just because we made some changes in our layout design. As well, we created an what if calculator, and it was not the point to create it during the initial steps, but during the testing steps, we decided that we should do so. So you are going to have a link on this interactive board, and you will be able to find out some more examples for each step. And also you'll find a PowerPoint template if you're going to try to use this Dashbord Canvas at your business process. You can download it here and just click and download it, and you'll get a PowerPoint template for you to use. So that's the end of our theoretical part, and we're going to use the Tableau. I'll show you how the dashboard was built in some tips and tricks on layout design. I'd like to get some feedback from you guys, and so the next question now, live polling would be, was the theoretical part of my presentation useful for you? And please vote and just say what do you think about it. Unfortunately, we don't have free form to type in, but I hope that these variants meet the things you think about this part. So would be really glad and appreciate your feedback on this theoretical part. I'll get back to this in a moment to see how have you answered the question. And now I'm going to move to more practical part of our presentation and to show you the live demo of the sales dashboard and going to show you demo in Tableau, how it was built. So let's first of all go through the dashboard and find how it works. It's a sales department dashboard, and for example, I'd like to put the dates that are in dashboard in the header. I think it's quite useful. Also, it's a good idea to place last data of updated data, and also I sometimes place in subheader, sometimes I place in somewhere else, but I think it's a good idea to have this information in your dashboard. The next part, we have part of main KPI block. So it's the idea of that part answers the helicopter view task. We have an amount several KPIs. These KPIs was discussed with the customer, and they decided that they are the most important one. And I think that a clever idea to have some mini bar charts, mini sparklines here, just because you can see that the average plan, we have almost reached our plan. It's 78%, but two from our managers has reached it already, and two of them are lagging ahead, and the one of them is the worst one. So we shall pay attention to this manager. So as I said, the main idea that this part answers the question, what is a helicopter view and so on. And this part is operational one and dedicated mostly for our head of sales, who is tracking it sometimes on mobile device, sometimes on desktop. This part on the right side is mostly analytical one, and it's mostly about managers and channels and products. But as we understood that the main idea of this dashboard to track managers' performance, that's why it's the biggest part located here about managers. First of all, we have a table. I believe the table is a good visualization for comparing not a big amount of dimensions by multiple metrics. And I like to use tables and to use bar charts as some additional information for the table. I think it's quite visual, and we can see clearly that the average time to close, I have a mistake here, this should be vice versa. Okay, so the average check is quite different, and the average time to close is almost the same for all managers, and so on, so on, so on. This part we discussed already. So we have also the production, the analytics part of channels and products, and how can we reach the plan, what if calculator. This part works the way you just can adjust your parameters. You can, I don't know, decide that you are going to get more leads to your funnel and understand how it influences the plan. So I believe it's also quite convenient analytical tool here, just because managers can click themselves. For example, if I were Brown and I'd like to know what can I do in order to reach the plan, I can click on my own and to see that if I got 15 more leads and I'll increase my conversion from step to step, I'm going to reach the plan, no, almost reach the plan, and it's going to work well. So, and the last part of this dashboard is the detailed table, and it is designed with idea that these managers are not only analyzing data here, but also create, I don't know, some to-do lists for themselves, daily plans, and they can just click on a particular deal. So each row in this table is a deal, and just go to CRM by the link and understand what's going on. So that's the general view of this dashboard. Let's go to Tableau and find out some technical stuff. First thing I'd like to say about this technical side, that this dashboard is adaptive and it fits to different sides of the managers. And I believe it's quite crucial thing to do in our modern world to make the dashboards looking good on different devices. And by different devices, I don't mean mobile phones and desktops. I mean different sizes of the desktops, just because nowadays a lot of managers, a lot of business people using laptops, small laptops, and a lot of engineering team. And I don't know, sometimes when you're providing a meeting, you're using a huge desktop. And in order your dashboard looks good on all of them, you should provide adaptive design. In Tableau, it is made by range. So you just using range. I think that you should not use automatic size, just because if you use automatic size, it could works really bad for you, and it sometimes looks ugly and doesn't feel the screen the way you expect. So in my dashboards, I always using a range view, and it allows you to control and to design your dashboard the way it looks great. So how it's done? The point is that this part is fixed, and it has fixed amount of pixels, and this part is not fixed. And when we change the screen size, it's going to work well, and this part is going to looks great just because it wasn't changed in this, and this part is going to squeeze a bit, but nevertheless, it's also going to work well and looks okay. And if you increase your size, as I said, this is fixed and this is unfixed. Just in technical terms, it is done with vertical and horizontal containers. And if you don't use them, I suggest you to start to do so. Just because if you don't use them, it's really hard to create production dashboards that are easy to manage and are easy to redesign if you need one. So in order to create such layout, you just place, for example, vertical container in order to create sorry, I was disrupted a bit. So let's get back to it. So you place a vertical container, then you just place horizontal container in order to, I don't know, for example, place your title or something like that. Let's make it bigger. And now you can place horizontal container beneath. And now you can place, I prefer to place blank object in order to be comfortable of using it. And let's unhide our sheets. And place it on the dashboard. So now you can place it like that. For example, I'm going to use just like a dummy thing and something like that. And now if you fix this in this and make it fit entire view and delete the blank I've placed here, you're going to have responsible design. You're just going to, if you change the size of the dashboard, this part is going to resize and this part is going to be fixed. And I really like this type of layout just because it's quite controllable. And you always have one part of the dashboard that's fixed and that's going to work the best way just because you designed it this way. The second way to create adaptive and responsible dashboards is to distribute containers evenly. And if you have some layout that are divided by equal parts, you just can use that, and it's also going to work well. So they are going to be the third pass of these dashboards. They are going to resize evenly on the dashboard. For example, in this particular dashboard, it also was used here, and this part was unfixed, and this beneath part was distributed evenly. So here is we have a container, and these two parts are divided 50-50. And it's not a trick, it's a usual Tableau functionality. But for example, now company it's not widely used. That's I think if you don't use this one, try to do so, and I believe you'll love it. So the second, I don't know, tweak or life hack, it's using your filters as headers for your table. If you have a table, and this table is going to be filtered by all or almost all of the dimensions that are in the table, it's really a good idea just to use filters instead of headers. It makes it like Excel a bit for customers, and it's also user-friendly, and it really works cool. I believe it's a good decision just to place filters like that, and nothing wrong with that. And I suggest to do so. But the main trick here is that if you are using, I don't know, some action filters here, for example, if you click on consulting, it's going to be consulting only here, is going to filter as consulting in this table. In the main idea, look what's going on. Then I click consulting here. It's also becoming consulting here. If I unclick it, and it's going to be all. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Tableau, all of you, but for me, for example, it was really not invention, but it was a surprise, really nice surprise for me. In order to achieve this effect, you shall use not a general filter, not a quick filter, but you shall use your action filter. So you just go to filters, I don't know, for example, I'll delete action filter on product, and I'll add it once more time. No, it has appeared here at the top, but I'll get back. So the point is that this filter works great with action filters in pair. You click here, you get it here. If you apply it here, it's also apply vice versa. So for example, I didn't know about this feature. I don't know, maybe I found it a year ago or something like that, and it was really helpful and cool feature for me just because it shows the connection between action filters and quick filters, and works great. So the next trick, I'm not sure that it's even trick, but the techniques I'm using, it's using of several different visualizations, placed side by side, and creating a new visualization one. So in order to do so, in order to make such effect, you just shall hide your headers. So I'm going to show it for now. So we can see that there are the same dimensions and there are headers. So you just shall, if you want to do so, you just hide them. That's the first part. The second part, you shall remove all the paddings from the right and the left of these two parts. So you are going to layout, you are going to outer paddings, and you just unclick the lock, and you are using the nulls in order to them to be as close to each other as they can. But you should be really okay. Don't forget to make the same sort for your dimensions. If you have some dynamic filters that can change your sort, you shall do the sort the same. So, for example, in this case, it was just sorted manually, is because we had the 4 managers, and that's why it's just quite a dummy way to do so, but nevertheless. But if you have something like that, for example, in this particular, it also consists of 3 visualizations, and the sort is by field, and you shall you shall not forget to make the same sort on all of the visualizations that consists that creates your common table. So the next trick I'd like to show is about UTF symbols and using just the text as a color legend and size legends. For example, this legend is unusual one for Tableau. I mean, you can't create such size legend using Tableau just because it's, in my opinion, it's quite ugly and it's really big. Then you using a general legend for size in Tableau, it's really get a lot of space from your dashboard. And the main idea of this size of this legend is not so, it's not to be precise. You are not going to find out that this size of a dot means something or this. You just need to understand what is correlated to. It's just correlated to deal size. And in order to create such a legend, I'm just using UTF symbol on a circle and just place 3 of them and then manually, manually adjust the size of each symbol, just like that, something like that. So it seems a bit silly to do so, but it works really well for really small and readable legend. Also, I like to use colors. and also, for example, dots in order to show how it works, and you just can do the same way if you'd like. The next trick is how to create an access label inside the graph. If you're familiar with Tableau, you maybe know that there is only one way to show header, and it's going to be something like that. And it's always shown at the bottom of your graph, and it's always shown, but it hasn't appeared because it's always showed at the bottom of your chart and always in the center. And it removes the white, it removes space from your dashboard. I don't like it a lot. That's why I use a reference line and just some text in order to create access label. So it is just made in quite just a sec. I believe I has disappeared from you guys, and I'm going to start screen sharing. Okay. So, okay, just a sec. I'm sorry, I have just a sec. Okay, I'm sorry for that. I have trouble with electricity and my monitor has died. Sorry. So we stopped on the way I created the access label, and it was created the way I just used the reference line, just dropped a reference line here on the table, on the graph, and just edited and formatted it the way it looks like an access label. I just used the custom label here and wrote down the text I wanted. I also used just a maximum of all dots, and I used no lines and so on and so on. So, and no tooltips and so on. So, and now it works like an access label, but it is inside the graph. And I believe it's quite convenient way to show access labels for your charts. So the last part I'm going to show you is the one about how the what if calculator was created. And it's also not something special or something complex and tricky one, but I just was using two pills. One pill that showing real data, and the second pill is showing the forecast that is created using parameters. So then I apply some parameter. I just multiply the real data with some ratio, and it just showed with the bar chart on a dual axis. So it's just a dual axis, two dual axes, and this part is inverted in order to create the funnel and so on. So it's also not, I don't know, some kind of a really tricky stuff, but just the way to create such visualization if you need so. Okay. So I believe that's it. It was some tricks and ideas how to create a good layout in Tableau. I hope you enjoyed it, and let's find out what have you answered for the previous questions. We will have the final question on the technical side. Was the Tableau part also useful for you? I appreciate if you answer this as well. But I just like to pinpoint that when you're using creating dashboards, try to use responsive design and try to use as much layout as you can. And by the way, you can rename your containers if you want. I, for example, also didn't know about this function for quite a while. And if you have such structure on your items hierarchy, it's really good idea to have one and don't use tiled. So thanks you all for watching, and it happened to be so that Q&A session is not going to be. My partner said that he is not going. I'm sorry, just a sec. I'm going to check the chat with Dmitry.
Hi, Roman. Thank you for the presentation. So basically, looks like you asked to turn off the chat because you did this direct poll, so the chat didn't work, and that's why we assume we don't have any questions. So if you have more questions, just feel free to either contact directly with Roman, or you can simply send me a message and I will connect with Roman. So I hope it was a very useful session because I was really enjoyed this, and I saw cool techniques that I can apply at work. So I hope you feel the same. So Roman, thank you very much.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Dmitry, for having me today, and have a good day.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thanks.